What's up, fellas? Wednesday night, 8:59. Just had some dinner, came back out here in the backyard machine shop. Got a little sprint car racing going on, checking out from the weekend. 410 sprints. Probably the closest thing to a funny car that goes in circles, or a fuel altered that goes in circles. So I figured I'd come out here for a little bit and mess with the crank, get on this motor finally. Spun the crank up last night and got called off on another job, so I didn't get much done. But I got it spun up enough to see what I need to do. The bob weight came in at 2,600 grams. Finally got those rods in. Thank the Mike Lupo hooked us up with these MGP rods that only have 5 runs on them. So I'm a little excited about putting some rods in there that don't have 25 runs to start out, even though we've used them before, but it's supposed to be a low budget build. But being I couldn't find pistons, we ended up having a lot more in the pistons than I originally wanted. We ended up, having about $1,500 in a set of 10 pistons. So when I came across these rods that only had 5 runs, I waited for them to come in to get my weight up. These are MGPs compared to the GRPs. They're actually a couple grams lighter. So we came up with 2,600 gram bob weight. And now this crank here must have been set up for something a little heavier. This came out of the used Vini motor that had those big thick Brooks rods and those bandadized green fuel pistons. Pistons were about 100 grams heavier. The rods had about 100 grams on them, so that bob weight was closer to probably 2,800. So luckily, it's showing me that I need to take some weight out of the crank. I'm glad about that, because I hate to put heavy metal in a crank if I don't have to, especially when these cranks are so damn heavy. This billet Crowder crank, which is only a 3 750 stroke, this thing feels like I'm picking up a diesel crank. This thing's heavier than a crank out of a Duramax. But I got a little bit of metal to take out. Cranks are really tough to drill because they're billet tool steel. This crank's made out of H13, so I'm using some carbide end mills. I start out with a 3/8 end mill, and I just plunge on down. And so we're doing right now, we're gonna take a little bit of weight out of it. And of all places, the machine was instructing me to take weight out of where somebody put some heavy metal in. You see there's a piece of heavy metal, Mallory metal already in it, the point it needs to be lightened. So I don't believe the whole piece needs to come out, so I'm just going to counterbore it. On both sides, again, we got an old analog 2-plane balancer, but it was showing us that it needed a correction on both ends, both the flywheel and the drive hub side. So I'm going to take some material off this sucker. We'll spin it back up, and hopefully I can get it balanced up tonight, and then maybe tomorrow night. Well, no, tomorrow night, got a treat for you. I got a friend / customer that we helped out with a blown alcohol big block and his rear engine dragster. He's trying to run top dragster, and just got it in, got it fired up, and we're going to go to Durana Motorsports Park tomorrow night and shake it down with him and his son. He asked me if I'd come along, just kind of give him a hand, seeing if we can get it down the track and see where he's at, kind of establish a baseline. Sent the fuel system out to Spuds. He did the fuel system. It's just a run-of-the-mill 540 big block Chevy with a small blower and injected on nitro, injected on methanol, injected on alcohol. So I'll probably pick up tomorrow night up at Durana, formerly Galat Motorsports Park up in Dunbenson. But right now I'm gonna do some drilling on this crank and see if we get a little closer to possibly start putting this motor together the weekend. So let me get over here and make some chips. It's already 9 o'clock. I'm already feeling tired, so try Try to put at least another hour in. If I don't stay after it, we're never gonna get there. See my yellow paint markers are where I marked it on the machine, where it was showing me where my heavy spot was. So I'm just going to plunge in here this little 3/8 carbide end mill. If anyone has ever bought end mills, no, carbide end mills are super expensive, and to do shit like this with them is easy to make them dull and ruin them. So what I do, I hit up a lot of the auction sites. Bid Spotter is a good one. A lot of big factories and machine shops go out of business. You can buy a lot of times a cardboard box full of end mills, maybe 100, 150 end mills for like 50 bucks. And you know, some are going to be shot, some are going to be dull, some are sharpenable. Is that a word? Sharpenable? Well, you can sharpen them, put it that way. And a lot of them are pretty decent for just doing shit like this. So yeah, check that out, Bid Spotter. I buy a lot of stuff on there, tooling especially. Lock my table. It will make some vibration. Now I'll just plunge on down, and I'm going to make the hole, the depth, the same as the other side, because both corrections were showing needing about the same as far as the era that they were off. And to try to drill these with a regular twist drill or a cobalt drill, forget about it. You'll just eat up drills, and once that drill starts to work harden, I thought it was hard to drill through first. Before that, you might as well start over. But like I said, I'm just gonna rough the hole with this 3/8 end mill, and then I'll put that 3/4 baby back in there. And then we'll put it back on the machine and we'll spin it up. Let's walk to the back. I hear one of the screw machines sounds like it's out of sync. I got some little wheels, little roller wheels running tonight. Might as well keep something going. So this here is the Brown & Sharp model OG, original gangster. And we are making some little brass wheels. We'll do a little roller wheel. I think over the weekend I was talking about I was going to run them on the green index, but the due date was coming up pretty quick, and I had some tooling to get this one to run a little faster, so I set it up on here. So we got about 36 bars to run. We get about 500 parts a bar. So I'm just letting that run tonight. Make some shekels while I mess around balancing the crank. That one's off for tonight. I don't feel like coming back here every 5 minutes and messing with these, so I'm just letting that one run. This one here ran all day. This was making carburetor parts all day. Here. And there's our Hemi, waiting to be assembled. Let me change the end mill out and pop that 3/4 hole in there, and then we'll put the balancer, we'll fire the balancer up, and I got the hoist out here because that thing is just too heavy for me to handle by myself. I feel like shattering a nard tonight. All right, we got the crank back up here on the balancer, spinning her up. Right now we're checking the right side. can't see it on my phone camera here, but got a paint marker on the flange, and where that strobe light freezes my line, is where my correction needs to be done. And right now we're on the fine scale. We're down to off about an ounce. We've got to get it a lot closer than that. I'll bring it down to the ultra fine scale, and on the ultra fine scale, 0.5 tenths of an ounce would be good for street use, 0.2 for a race motor. I'll work it until we're almost down to 0. So I'm going to set my telltale there, and I'm going to set my dial for where my correction needs to be. And let's see, now we'll swap sides. Now we'll lock the right, pull off the left, and check the other side. So the other side's much closer. We're actually off the fine scale, and we can go to the ultra fine scale. And we're pretty close there. We're showing, about 0.3. And our correction needs to be down here on the bottom. All right, let's break it, and let's find out where our correction needs to be. I'll tell you, this crank is so heavy, I just can't get over the weight of this thing. This doesn't make much sense to me that you would want to turn a 10,000 RPM engine with a 150-pound crankshaft. So our dial on the right looks like we're about 930. And see, I'm gonna fix this mark better, we can see it. Well, that's a sucky place to need a correction. So remember, the machine always shows the correction needing it at 12 o'clock. So if we're at 9:30 here, the center line, 12 o'clock, correction needs to be about right there, which isn't a good spot. Because obviously, you can't really take weight out there. You can only take it out on the top of the counterweight. So we'll have to either add weight, find a place where we can go 180 degrees and put weight in. Now the front is showing there. Again, not a good spot in the front. Oh, it's showing right here on the arm to be a heavy spot. So right now Anthony's over there decking a block. It's actually Thursday morning now. He's decking a block over there, and I don't like to use the balancer when he's running the big milling machine, because it'll actually pick up vibration in the floor and throw me off. That's why I usually do the balancing in the evenings when I'm the only one in here. But, well, let's pull this out and check it. Probably going to put it back there on the mill and do some more corrections. So right now it's showing it needs a correction about right here on the front arm. And we're real close. We're on the fine scale. Down to 3.5 tenths. So we could, this is pretty thick arms. We can remove a little material here. You can see on the back side, I already spotted a section here where it was showing heavy. So I'm going to work that front arm a little bit. To get real close, we could actually work it with a sanding pad and blend this in. Of course, being careful not to hit the journals. So I shouldn't be working on this during a work day. Like I said, it's Thursday now. I got a little tired last night and went in. But I'm going to try to knock this out because I have some customer cranks that need to be balanced, and I don't feel like setting mine back up. Mine's up here now, so we need to get it done. Let me find Anthony so I could give him a hand to put this sucker back on the machine, because like I said, it is friggin' heavy. It's going to breaking my ass to pick this up by myself. But, it looks like he's over there working on that's the motor out of a Scout. That's an international engine we're rebuilding. I believe it's a 345 International Scout engine. But yeah, no lack of work. We got a ton of shit going on between the screw machines running in the back, and we got a bunch of LSs to work on. A little 347 Ford. I'm getting ready to put a torque plate on there, hone that, and I believe a mod motor showed up this morning. There's an MG motor on a pallet out there, so no lack of crap to do. Just wish we could make money a little faster. Uncle Mike's 377. I gotta pound this together for him. I've been promising him this motor forever. And I got a new machine coming end of the week. I'll brief you guys on. If you notice, there's a spot in the shop that's missing. Well, there's a machine that's missing. Remember the big boring mill that was there? Well, I pulled that out and sold it to put money together for a CNC boring mill / milling machine that I'm going to dedicate just to do block work instead of doing it manually. Be able to be programmable. It's got a Fanuc control on it, which I'm familiar with, and one of my favorite controls. But I'm rambling on. Let's go ahead and get this crank finished up. Dirt racing. I should have stayed doing that shit. 'Cause right now, I'm not having a whole bunch of fun playing with these funny cars. Well, I finally got done balancing that crank, and I wanted to do a cool segment showing the balancer, explaining how I come up with the bob weights for the combination, the setup for the balancer, for the weight for the rods, the pistons, the rings, you know, weighing them, weighing the big end of the rod, the small end, and all that. And I'm going to do that in another segment with another crank. I was having a hell of a time getting this crank balanced, and it was really pissing me off, and it just wouldn't have made good content for a video. Well, I made a fatal error, and I got a little putting the horse before the wagon, or is it the wagon before the horse? Something like that. Whatever it is, I fucked up. And I should have known when I was having such trouble balancing this crank. I chased and chased and chased the heavy spot. And on an analog balancer, it's not computerized, so it gives you the spot where the heavy spot of where the imbalance is. And I kept correcting the imbalance, and it kept moving and kept moving. Every time I spun the crank up, and it's really important that when you spin the crank up, you get it to the same RPM. So I was constantly checking it. And every time I'd make a correction and check it, it was off. And I never had one that took, I mean, it literally took, I finally gave up on it yesterday. I was out here like 11 o'clock last night. And I said, well, I'll get up early and I'll knock it out before my work day, because I had it on the balancer, and I got like 3 other cranks that got to be balanced for customer motors. And so I'll get up early and knock mine out. Well, about 6 hours later, I still couldn't get it real close. And you could see I was doing a little touch-up by hand with the grinder, just really slight modifications to change around. And I said, something ain't right here, you know. And normally, the first thing you should ever do when you're contemplating an engine build with used parts, and I know this, and I didn't, I just bypassed this step, you always check the crank for cracks. And the best way to do it, well, definitely the best way, the only way to do it correctly is with a wet Magnaflux machine. Unfortunately, we don't have one. I used to when I had a larger shop, and when I moved here to the machine shop behind my house, I sold the Magnaflux machine. Because I got a little half-ass method I use that's always worked for me. And anytime you mess with a prior motor, especially a race motor, you got to check it. And the quick check is the old ring test. And the ring test is just smacking it with a hammer and listening to it. But it takes a little more of an educated ear, almost like tuning a piano. And I'm going to show you how to do this. It's kind of a hack way to do things, but it definitely, if you can't get this test right, then you definitely, if you have any reservations that this test isn't coming out right, you go onto a Magnaflux machine. And I'm going to show you here. Here's a big block Chevy crank. This is a Bryant crank. It's a used racing crank out of one of my big blocks. And I take a brass hammer. I always want to use a hammer that's made out of softer material than what the crankshaft is. And if you're dealing with like a stock crank, stock steel, so you definitely don't want to use a regular steel hammer. Always use a soft hammer. And the best way to do it is to take the crank and suspend it in the air. And I use an old fan belt, and I just hold it on my little engine hoist here. And what that'll do is, if the crank's just sitting on the ground, a lot of times the concrete will dampen the harmonics and change the pitch. But if you've been doing this a little while, you can kind of get an idea. And I got an array of cranks just hanging around. Some are customers, some are stuff that were pulled out of motors that aren't being used, some are mine. Like for instance, we're going to look at this little Bryant big block crank. And we're just going to go here right on the side. I'm going to lower this TV, so I want to see if we can get a good audio here. Hang on.
And took Wiles, currently turns at 7th quick overall.
There we go. All right. Take your brass hammer and let's hear that ring. Listen to that, like a church bell. Well, you could just hear that just ringing. And that, to me, I'd have no reservations putting that right in a motor. Because if there is a crack, a substantial crack, you're going to get a thud, not a ring. And the old saying that I was taught years ago, if it's got a thud, well, it's a dud. Well, here's some more cranks here. Here's my other Hemi crank. This is one of my RCD spline Hemi crank. This is my 4-inch 150 stroke. This would be for my 526. Remember, to make this go a little faster, we bought this used Vini motor, which has turned out to be a disaster. I thought it was going to be a cheap way to get the one funny car together quickly. So I've been moving forth with that. Remember, it was a short deck TFX with a 3-inch 750 short stroke. Supposedly a small-inch alcohol motor. We pulled it apart. Lo and behold, it was an old fuel motor. So we take my, I don't know what make crank this is. I think this is Bryant also. It's either Bryant or a Winberg. A little lower tone, but still a nice ring. Yeah, I mean, listen to that, just hitting the snout lightly. Here's a raggedy 454 crank that came in for service. I gotta put that up on the grinder and polish it. It's like playing Lavazza here. Let's listen to that. Look how long that held that tone. Even this old crank. Now we go to that Crowder crank that came in the Vini motor we bought. Well, that's why I struggled balancing this piece of shit for 10 hours, because it was flexing so bad from the crack. And now that it thudded like a dudded, I ran it over to my buddy's shop that has a wet mag machine, and we found a lot of cracks all over the main journals. Not really visual to the eye, but once I heard that thud, and you know, I'm a dumbass because that's the first thing I should have did was did that. I'll even go to here's a damn factory small block Chevy 350 steel crank. It's got about 1 million miles on it. Now here's a Scat 9000 cast crank. It still has a substantial ring, but it's got a dull thud, and that's because that's a cast crank. So a cast crank is going to get that thud compared to that nice ring. Now this Crowler crank that came in the Vini motor was a steel billet crank. Not only did it balance up like shit, you can see the amount of time I put into this thing, playing with it, because I kept chasing the dragon, trying to get that heavy spot. And as the crank was flexing, it was just moving. The harmonics were just moving around to, it was just wrecking havoc on the machine, just giving me a false reading. It would move. It would move to 9 o'clock. It would move to 10:30. It would move back to 9 o'clock, and I attribute that where it must have just been flexing when it was in the machine. So unfortunately, we won't be putting no motor together this weekend. But that's something you can do at home if you want to go out there and get a brass hammer, start whacking some cranks. You got a good crank that came out of a race motor. If it sounds like this piece of shit, chances are it's probably cracked. But, again, a wet mag machine is the proper way to check these. And, for $50, I'd have saved myself a lot of time if I would have checked it first. But I got a little ahead of myself. I was getting a little excited. And I should have known. Remember, we fixed the block. It had a cracked main cap on it. And, anytime... especially when we got the motor and we found out it was a nitro motor, it was a fuel motor. Fuel motors are usually one of two things. They're either blown up, ready to blow up, or if they're in really good shape, they haven't been run yet. But we should have known by that cracked main cap that was welded back together. If you remember the segment I did on this, that should have really stuck in my mind that I should have looked at that crankshaft a little closely before I went out and bought pistons that are only going to fit this combination now. Remember, I was trying to find some shelf pistons, and Justin Aries had a set of pistons that he sent us. But unfortunately, now the compression height will only work with that wacky-ass stock 3-inch 750 stroke, which kind of sucked anyway. Being the motor was only going to be 450 inches, but I said to myself, well, we got everything. It'd be a good test, a test bed engine, a baseline motor, and it'll get together a lot quicker than trying to, remember, we got all these other TFX blocks in my arsenal that I'm going to be repairing. These are taller deck height motors that I was saving for that new crank that I have in the bag over here. The only problem is, the only heads we got now are the Vini heads. We haven't fixed the Brad heads yet. The Vini heads use a specific Vini piston, and with the compression height in the short deck of that TFX block that came in this old Vini motor, it's kind of specific. So it looks like I'm going to have to peel off a little bit of cash, talk to my brother this weekend and tell him I'm going to need to use his card this week and order a crank. Probably call Ohio Crank. They got a Nostalgia Nitro Special, they call it. It's a 3-inch 750. 3-inch 750 is still pretty common with the fuel altered guys, building a 426 based fuel motor. Because on Nitro, the short stroke really helps it live, even though the large stroke is what makes thermonuclear power. The long stroke's hard on parts on a nitro motor, so the guys still stick with the short stroke. I know Rat Poison, those guys, last time I talked to them, they were still using a short 3-inch 750 stroke. So unfortunately, if I can't find a used one, we're going to be looking at buying a new one. So Don't look for a video probably this weekend because I was going to make a video starting to put the motor together, checking clearances and getting that knocked out. But we got to regroup, so a little down and out tonight. I'm going to upload this video. Like I said, we'll get back at the balance tech, and I'm going to make a nice video start to finish showing you guys how to run an analog balancer and how to properly set it up and balance the crank. But from now on, just remember, if you're starting with used parts and you're building a serious motor, get the crank magged. But if anything else, go ahead and do your little ring test first. There still may be a slight hidden crack. Don Gartlett's had a video years ago, or not a video, an editorial he wrote, I believe it was in National Dragster, or it might have been Hot Rod Magazine, showing this is how he used to do it. He would ring them on the old 392s, and when they stopped ringing, he'd toss them. But the thud, if you got a thud, it's a dud. All right, guys, enough for this. I'll catch you guys at a later date.